A leather-bound high jump report sits in the archives of the Bird Polar and Climate Research Center at Ohio State University. Operation High Jump, 1947, 13 ships, 4,700 men. 8 weeks in, everyone came home. The Book of Enoch was removed from the Bible by the Council of Laodicea in 364 AD. Banned, hidden, called dangerous by the Church. The Antarctic Treaty of 1959 sealed the continent to unregulated exploration. Classified expeditions preceded it by 12 years. What they found has never been fully released. When the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in 1947 at Qumran, 11 separate copies of Enoch surfaced, more copies than most books that made it into the Old Testament. The same year, the largest naval expedition in the history of the continent came home. Chapter 18 of the Book of Enoch describes a journey toward the south, to a deep chasm at the ends of the earth, holding a prison where the stars of heaven are bound by the angel Uriel. The coordinates the passage names resolve to the location of the Wilkes Land gravity anomaly. 70 degrees south. In the next several minutes, you'll see what the text records, what the ICE hides, and why no drilling survey has been permitted at that coordinate. If forbidden biblical history fascinates you, hit subscribe. Every week, we uncover what Scripture recorded and Antarctica confirms. But here's what makes this stranger. The Book of Enoch, as it survives today, is preserved primarily in Ge'ez, the classical liturgical language of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Bodley and Bruce 74 at Oxford. Bodley and Bruce 93. Vatican Ethiopic 71. The monastery holdings at Aksum. The Ethiopian Church has kept Enoch inside its scripture continuously for more than 1,000 years, uninterrupted by the Roman decision to remove it. Chapters 17 through 19 form a single unit. Enoch is taken by angels to see the physical structure of the created world. Winds, storehouses, the cornerstone of the earth, the pillars of heaven. Then verse 6 of chapter 18, in the Michael Knibb Oxford translation of 1978, "And I went towards the south, and it was burning day and night, where there were 7 mountains of precious stones." South. Not east, not the general direction of the temple. South. Enoch's text is directional and specific. By verse 11, he sees a deep chasm with columns of fire falling into it. Beyond the chasm, a place with no firmament above and no foundation below, no water, no birds. 7 stars, like great burning mountains, bound there. Uriel names it. This is the place of the end of heaven and earth. This is the prison for the stars of heaven and the host of heaven. The prison beneath. R. H. Charles produced the standard English edition in 1906. Ephraim Isaac produced a direct Ge'ez translation in 1983. George Nickelsburg's Fortress Press commentary of 2001 is the current scholarly consensus. All of them preserve the southerly journey. None of them read the chasm as symbolic. Nickelsburg, in his commentary, explicitly identifies chapter 18 as part of the oldest stratum of Enochic material, likely composed in the 3rd or 2nd century BC. The Aramaic originals were long thought lost. Then, in 1947, a Bedouin shepherd found the first cave at Qumran. Over the next 9 years, Cave 4 alone would yield fragments of 11 distinct Aramaic copies of the Book of Enoch, cataloged as 4Q201 through 4Q207. The primary editor, Joseph Mielik, published the Aramaic Cave 4 material through Oxford in 1976. Mielik held additional fragments unpublished for decades. He died in 2006. The full corpus was never completed. That is one side of the collision. Now the other. On August 26, 1946, Chief of Naval Operations Admiral Chester Nimitz announced Operation High Jump. Task Force 68, 13 ships, 4,700 personnel, 33 aircraft, a submarine, the USS Senate, an aircraft carrier, the USS Philippine Sea, the flagship, USS Mount Olympus. Command of the task force went to Rear Admiral Richard H. Cruzen. The scientific and research elements were led by Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd. Little America 4 was established on the Ross Ice Shelf on January 15, 1947. The mission was planned for 6 to 8 months. By late February, everyone was going home. The official reason, worsening weather. The unofficial reason, contested for 79 years. On March 5th of 1947, aboard the Mount Olympus in transit north, Byrd gave an interview to International News Service correspondent Lee Van Atta. It ran in the Chilean newspaper El Mercurio in Spanish, under the headline, Admiral Richard E. Byrd refers to the strategic importance of the poles. Byrd warned that the United States needed to prepare for the possibility of attack from planes coming from the polar regions. The interview was never republished in English by any American paper of record. 7 years later, on December 8th of 1954, Byrd sat in front of a camera at CBS television, interviewed by Kenneth Crawford and Larry Lesueur for the Longines Chronoscope program. He spoke of coal and mineral deposits within 180 miles of the South Pole. He said Antarctica was the most peaceful place in the world. Then he said, "But I don't think it will be for long." 3 years later, Byrd was dead. Cardiac failure, age 68. No follow-up television interview was ever conducted. 1959 and 60, 12 years after High Jump left, the United States Victoria Land Traverse would map something at 70 degrees south that Enoch's chapter 18 appears to describe. That is where we go next. What we're looking at breaks into 3 parts. Part 1 is the passage itself. Chapter 18, verses 11 through 14, in Nibb's Oxford translation, "And I saw a deep chasm of the earth, with pillars of heavenly fire. And beyond this chasm I saw a place, and it had neither the sky above it, nor the foundation of earth below it. There was no water on it, and no birds, but it was a desert place. And a terrible thing I saw there, 7 stars, like great burning mountains." Uriel identifies the location as the end of heaven and earth. He identifies the crime. These are stars which transgress the commandment of the Lord. He identifies the sentence. They are bound, in Charles' 1906 rendering, until the time of the consummation of their sin, in the year of mystery. Enoch's directional coordinates in this passage are consistent. He went toward the south. He passed the 7 mountains of precious stones described in verses 6 through 8. Then the chasm, then the prison beyond it. South of the mountains at the ends of the earth is a chasm containing bound entities. That is what the text says. Part 2 is what the ice shows. In 1959 and 60, the United States Victoria Land Traverse crossed a section of East Antarctica that had not been previously surveyed by ground-based instruments. The party included geophysicist John G. Weihaupt of the University of Wisconsin Geophysical and Polar Research Center. What they measured was a substantial anomaly in the gravitational field of Antarctica. Their initial estimate, a subglacial depression approximately 243 kilometers in diameter, centered on East Antarctic Wilkes Land. Richard A. Schmidt in 1962 published the first paper proposing that the anomaly was the signature of an ancient meteorite impact basin. The paper was not embraced by mainstream planetary science at the time. The anomaly, however, kept turning up in every subsequent survey. Airborne radar, airborne magnetic survey, seismic reflection. Then in 2006, NASA's Gravity Recovery and Climate Experiment satellites, known as GRACE, resurveyed East Antarctica from orbit. Ralph von Friese of Ohio State University and colleagues published the analysis in the journal Geochemistry, Geophysics, Geosystems in 2009. Their revised measurement, the anomaly is not 243 kilometers across. It is closer to 500 kilometers across. It is centered near 70 degrees south, 140 degrees east. There is a positive mass concentration, a mascon, at its core. The coordinates the text gives are not symbolic. They resolve to a specific point, 70 degrees south, 140 degrees east, 2 miles under the ice, the prison beneath. Part 3 is what the ice above the anomaly is doing. In 2015, a follow-up study titled The Wilkes Land Anomaly Revisited, published in the Cambridge journal Antarctic Science, noted a specific detail. The ice sheet over the anomaly is described in the peer-reviewed literature as a chaotically disturbed region. Ice streams over the feature move in ways the surrounding ice does not. The topographical relief beneath the ice is more than 1,500 meters. Something under the ice is affecting the ice above it. What modern readers don't realize is how closely this matches what Enoch's chapter 18 describes. A chasm, bound entities within it, a disturbed region marking the location. The mainstream response is simple. The Wilkes Land gravity anomaly is a meteorite impact basin, perhaps 250 million years old, a natural feature. That is a reasonable interpretation, but it does not account for why a text preserved in Aramaic at Qumran and continuously in Ge'ez at Aksum for 2,000 years directs its reader specifically toward the south to reach a chasm holding bound entities. And it does not account for why no direct sample of the anomaly has been permitted in 67 years since its discovery. Every study has been remote, satellite, airborne, seismic. Nobody has been permitted to drill. The most recent reinforcement of the impact basin hypothesis was published by Klokocznik, Kostelecki, and Bezdek in the journal Earth Planet Space in 2018. Their conclusion? The anomaly is real, the mass concentration is real, the shape suggests a possible impact origin, but the constraints imposed by the overlying continental ice sheet mean other explanations remain viable. Other explanations, under 2 miles of ice, unsampled. That is one side of the suppression. The other side started 1,600 years earlier. The suppression starts at the Council of Laodicea in 364 AD. Church leaders gathered in what is now Western Turkey and produced a list of accepted scriptures. The Book of Enoch was removed. The official reason was excessive material about the Watchers, the angelic beings who took human wives and produced offspring. The deeper reason was that Enoch made checkable geographical claims. The ends of the earth toward the south. A chasm, a prison. Uriel set over it. Jerome, working on the Latin Vulgate around 400 AD, dismissed Enoch in his prefaces as apocryphal. Augustine, in City of God, argued that its specificity was evidence of forgery. If it were true, he wrote, it would not need to say so much. But the Ethiopian church, operating outside Roman jurisdiction, kept Enoch inside its scripture. The Ge'ez manuscripts at Aksum preserved the text for 1,000 years, while the Roman West lost it entirely. In 1773, the Scottish explorer James Bruce brought 3 Ge'ez manuscripts back to Europe from Ethiopia. 2 centuries later, R. H. Charles produced the 1906 English edition that became the standard scholarly text. Charles, working within Anglican assumptions, systematically softened Enoch's directional language. Where the Ge'ez says, I went towards the south, Charles's commentary treats the direction as figurative. Ephraim Isaac's 1983 direct Ge'ez translation, published by Oxford, restores it. Michael Knibb's 1978 critical edition preserves it. Nickelsburg's 2001 Fortress commentary treats the directional geography as original to the text. Charles softened. The Ethiopic preserved. In the second suppression starts 12 years before the Antarctic Treaty was signed. Operation High Jump launched in December of 1946. It withdrew in late February of 1947. The stated reason was worsening weather, but the operation had been planned as a full summer campaign. Everyone knew Antarctic weather. Everyone had prepared for it. Byrd's March 5th interview in El Mercurio, warning about attack from the polar regions, went unaddressed in the American press. Operation Windmill followed in 1947 and 1948. Colonel Emil Bunger discovered the Bunger Oasis, an unexpected ice-free area of East Antarctica. Publication of the discovery was delayed. Bird's Longines chronoscope appearance in 1954 included the line about Antarctica not staying peaceful for long. Nobody in television journalism followed up. Bird died in 1957. Cardiac failure, age 68. No follow-up interview. 2 years later, in 1959, 12 nations signed the Antarctic Treaty. Article 1 banned military activity. Article 4 froze territorial claims. Article 7 permitted inspection, but only through sponsor nations. The structural effect, from 1961 forward, was that independent research at any specific coordinate now required government approval. Any coordinate, including 70 degrees south, 140 degrees east. One suppression started in 364 AD. The other started in 1947. Both suppress the same thing. But what the standard translation hides is this. R.H. Charles's 1906 English edition condensed the descriptive intensity of the chapter 21 companion passage, where Enoch returns to the same prison in a second vision, and Uriel speaks more plainly. In Ephraim Isaac's direct Ge'ez translation of 1983, the words are these. In Uriel, one of the holy angels, who was with me and led me, spoke to me and said, These are some of the stars which transgress the command of the Lord Most High, and they have been bound here until 10,000 ages are completed. Bound, under a lid, until a specific term completes. And then, in the same vision, there was a great fire there, which burnt and blazed. And the place had a cleft reaching into the abyss, full of great pillars of fire, which were made to fall. Neither its extent nor its size could I see, nor could I see its source. A cleft reaching into the abyss, bound entities, fire in the depths, at the ends of the earth, toward the south. Now compare that to the Wilkes Land record. The Klakoksnik 2018 paper describes a 500-kilometer subglacial basin with a positive mass concentration at its core. Rectangular in shape, not perfectly circular. A U-shape is how the study puts it. The northern side is fragmented. The literature has proposed multiple origins. Meteorite impact, ancient igneous diapir, tectonic feature, glacially eroded valley, subglacial sedimentary basin. All are consistent with a chasm. All are consistent with something dense buried under 2 miles of ice. None of them have been directly confirmed. The gravity signature, the magnetic signature, the disturbed ice above, the prison beneath, the temporal specificity. Enoch's chapter 21 uses the phrase, the year of mystery. One manuscript reads, myriad of years. Charles renders it 10,000 years. The Ethiopic tradition preserves the number. The bound entities are held until a specific consummation. The Wilkes Land anomaly, dated by mainstream geological consensus, is estimated to be as old as 250 million years, or possibly younger. The literature is not decided. What is not disputed is that the mass concentration underneath is dense, distinct, and cannot be reached without direct sampling, which has not been authorized. Now, researchers have tried to argue that Enoch's cosmology was purely symbolic, that the southern journey is a literary device to represent moral distance from Jerusalem, that the 7 stars are metaphors for angelic beings without physical location. That is a defensible reading. Nickelsburg himself entertains it, but it does not account for why the text gives specific directional coordinates at all. A purely symbolic vision does not require the narrator to go south. It does not require 7 mountains of precious stones as landmarks. It does not require a chasm as a specific topographical feature. The text does all of this because it is describing a place. Others have argued that even if the description is geographical, it cannot match Wilkes Land because Wilkes Land was inaccessible to any Second Temple author. That is true. Enoch's author in the 3rd or 2nd century BC could not have known about Wilkes Land through empirical observation. That is not the claim of this video. The claim is that the text describes something. Modern instruments have found something at the coordinates the text names. The coincidence, if it is a coincidence, has become measurable. Which brings us to the personal stake. The stars are still bound, Enoch says, verse 15. The stars which roll over the fire, these are the ones which transgressed, bound. Present tense. The Wilkes Land anomaly is not decreasing in magnitude. Every satellite pass measures the same signature. Every remote survey finds the same mass. Whatever is under 2 miles of East Antarctic ice at 70 degrees south, 140 degrees east, is still there. Still dense, still measurable, and still, at the time of this recording, 67 years after its discovery, unsampled. Uriel is still on duty. The verse still names him, the prison beneath. Now, here's where it gets active. In 1998, a joint Russian, French, and American team began drilling into Lake Vostok. Subglacial Lake Vostok is roughly 250 kilometers long, buried beneath 4 kilometers of ice in East Antarctica. It has been sealed from the surface for as long as 15 million years. The scientific interest is obvious. What lives, if anything, in a body of water that old and that isolated? The drilling proceeded slowly, for legitimate reasons. Contamination, pressure, the risk of introducing surface organisms to a pristine environment. But in 2012, when the Russian team announced they had reached the lake's surface, the follow-up biosample release was fragmentary. Some material was published, other material was not. The reasons were, and remain, contested. Now consider the sister case, subglacial Lake Ellsworth in West Antarctica. A British Antarctic survey team led by Martin Siegert of Imperial College London attempted, in 2012 as well, to drill into Lake Ellsworth. The mission was suspended. The stated reason was equipment failure. The mission has not been reattempted. Now consider Wilkes Land. No drilling of the Wilkes Land gravity anomaly has been authorized. Every study since Wayhop's 1959 to 1960 ground traverse has been remote. Von Friese used satellite gravity. Fausto Ferraccioli and colleagues at the British Antarctic Survey have flown airborne magnetic surveys. Klokocznik worked from orbital data. Nobody has been permitted to physically sample what is under that ice. Researchers have argued that the reason nobody has drilled Wilkes Land is cost, distance, and logistical difficulty. That is true. It is also true that when funding has been available, permits at that specific coordinate have not materialized. The Antarctic Treaty Permit Environment, operated through the National Science Foundation Office of Polar Programs, is public. Denial patterns are cataloged. Independent researchers know which coordinates are quietly not available. Wilkes Land is one of them. The high jump final report was published in 1955. It is available at the National Archives and at the Bird Polar and Climate Research Center at Ohio State. But specific annexes and Bird's personal working documents have partial restrictions that have persisted through generations of Freedom of Information Act requests. What is documented is that the report was and remains only partially released. The map exists. The passage exists. The convergence is not the mystery. The suppression of both is. 67 years since the Antarctic Treaty. 79 years since high jump. The coordinate is still restricted. Why? Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying there is a literal prison of fallen angels chained under 2 miles of Antarctic ice at 70 degrees south, 140 degrees east. I'm not saying Admiral Byrd's task force 68 fled from a supernatural entity in 1947. I'm not saying Uriel is still on duty at his post. What we have to confront is the simplest explanation that fits the evidence. A text composed in the 3rd or 2nd century BC, preserved in Aramaic at Qumran and continuously in Ge'ez at Aksum for 2,000 years, directs its reader to travel toward the south to reach a chasm at the ends of the earth. The chasm holds bound entities. It is described as a specific physical location, not a symbolic destination. A modern gravimetric anomaly at 70 degrees south in East Antarctica matches the description with unusual precision. The largest naval Antarctic expedition in history was withdrawn from that continent 8 weeks into a 6 to 8 month plan, and the coordinate has never been directly sampled. The Ethiopic manuscripts remain in Aksum, locked behind stone and tradition. The Aramaic fragments remain in Jerusalem, climate-controlled, some of them still unpublished at Malik's death in 2006. The high jump annexes remain at Ohio State, partially restricted. The 70 degrees south coordinate remains under 2 miles of ice, unsampled. Chapter 18 is still preserved in the Geza at Aksum. The prison beneath. Michael Knibb's Oxford translation still names the direction. Toward the south. The prison beneath. The Wilkes Land gravity anomaly is still mapped at 70 degrees south. The prison beneath. The high jump report is still redacted in part. The prison beneath. Uriel is still named, in verse 14, as the angel set over the place. The prison beneath. 79 years since the United States Navy left. 67 years since the treaty was signed. 67 years since the anomaly was first mapped by John Wyhopt in the Victoria Land Traverse. 2 miles of ice above, 500 kilometers across, 70 degrees south, 140 degrees east. Bird said it was the most peaceful place in the world. He said he didn't think it would be for long. 3 years later, he was dead. And in a text the church removed from the Bible 17 centuries ago, at coordinates, the Book of Enoch gave in the 2nd century BC, the Wilkes Land gravity anomaly still sits exactly where Enoch said it would be, exactly where the Victoria Land Traverse confirmed it in 1959, and exactly where the largest naval expedition in the history of the continent turned around and left. Chapter 18, verse 11, the chasm, verse 14, the prison, verse 15, still bound, 70 degrees south,